There are a lot of different ways to measure how big something is. Today I want to talk about three of those: length, area, and volume, and what the differences are. So length is when we're measuring just in one dimension, how long something is. So we usually represent that by a line, and when we measure it, it's just plain old units that were reported in. So something is a certain number of centimeters long, or inches long, or miles long, or whatever. Area is when we measure sort of the space enclosed by some shape. So in this case, it's a rectangle, which makes figuring out area really easy, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But it could be a circle or some curvy blob or something like that. And the area is that space inside that's enclosed in two dimensions. So it doesn't have any height, but it's got a length and a width. And because there are two dimensions, the units get squared. So we're actually, when we figure out area, we're multiplying length times width when it comes to rectangles. So we also multiply the units, and centimeters times centimeters is centimeters squared. So we report in units squared. When we get to volume, it's length times width times height for shapes like this. And then we report in units cubed, or units to the third power, because we have units times units times units. Well, in these problems today, we are trying to figure out area, and we're starting in a very basic way with this rectangle drawn on a grid, and our units in this case are just going to be called units. One of these squares of the grid is a unit on each side, so one of these is a square unit. And to figure out the area of the shaded area here, or the shaded figure, we can do it in two ways. We can either just count the squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or we can multiply the number of rows by the number of units in a row. So for example, I see that there are two rows here, and each row has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this would be 5 times 2, and that of course equals 10. Another way to think about this is length times width, and that's going to equal your area. Let's try one more of these to practice. Oh, and I should have reported this actually. It's not just 10 that the area is, it's 10 units squared, or you could write it as 10 square units. All right, let's do one more to practice here. So we could count all of those little boxes and report that as the area, but we're going to do this the easier way. I see there are 3 rows, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 in each row. So 4 times 3, well, that's 12. So that's a little quicker than just counting up to 12. And again, we want units squared, or 12 square units. And that is how to figure out the area of a rectangle.